Hello and welcome back to the FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub, where we are looking forward to Game Week 23 with Adam Hopcraft and Andy Green, but also with our special guest and Fantasy Football Hub contributor, Mark McGettigan, aka the FPL General. For those who don't know Mark, where have you been hiding? But just to introduce him, Mark is one of the most successful managers in FPL history, with an eye-watering 3 top 500 finishes in 4 seasons. He writes his weekly Transfer What It article for Hub members and also manages our social media activity. So firstly, welcome, Mark, and how is your season going?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, lads. It's good to make my Fantasy Football Hub podcast debut. I've been listening every week and they've been getting better and better as they go. So hopefully we can make this one the best one yet. Season-wise, it's going, I would say, okay. Not spectacular, not awful. I think I'm around 177k now after 3 consecutive red arrows. So hoping over the next couple of weeks to get some momentum going and start moving upwards rather than downwards in those rankings.
A better season than last season then, Mark, so far.
Yeah, don't mention that one, please.
Okay. Thanks for coming on, Mark, to share your thoughts and your expertise. So we had many questions from the community this week, including looking at Man City assets, Watford assets, Liverpool assets, captaincy choices, and much more. So we decided we would try and answer some of these by going through our teams and plans over the next week or two, one by one, to get into the head of successful managers in Adam, Andy and Mark and their thought process, which will no doubt include most of these points. I have also activated my second wildcard, so I look forward to that being smashed to pieces in the next 45 minutes or so. We will then have a quick-fire question round at the end to wrap up. So like a lamb to the slaughter, let's bring up Mark's team first. For those on audio, Mark, could you firstly run through your team?
Yeah, so this team it's freshly wildcarded from Game Week 20. So it's got Matt Ryan in goal, standard back 3 of Trent, Soyuncu and Lundstram. Salah, Maddison, De Bruyne and Grealish make up the midfield with the VAR up front, or the VAD up front, I should say. Jimenez, Rashford and Vardy. With the useless Rico and Kelly and Romeu on the bench. I brought in Romeu on wildcard. I thought he might be able to cover Danny Ings' points, but I think he's got one minute in each of the last 2 game weeks as my third sub. So yeah, that's kind of fairly template squad. But looking at a bit of a shake-up this week, I think I know a lot of people are looking at a third Liverpool player, and I decided last week that I want that to be Sadio Mane. So I've got the tough decision now. I've got to lose Rashford after his very good performance at the weekend, but I'm going to stick to the plan. So I'm actually thinking of making early transfers on a Monday night when we're recording. I don't usually make early transfers, but I think it could be a -4 for me with Rashford, Jimenez and Maddison. Maddison making a quick exit after just 1 game week, with Mane coming in, Danny Ings finally, and probably Mopai as well up front, because I've only got that 5.8 million to spend, so I can't get the Calvert-Lewin, so I'm probably just going to settle for Mopai, which I don't mind because I've got a soft spot for him. Had him earlier in the season and I like his fixtures, especially his next one. Sorry, Adam, I think he's up against Aston Villa next, so hoping Mopai can do well in that one.
Well, big game, yeah, definitely. Couple of things, because your team's, it's fairly similar in structure to mine. You mentioned that you were looking at getting rid of Rashford. Obviously, the weekend, he looked brilliant. I know he played, was it 58 or 59 minutes? Not sure whether he makes the...
I think he escaped the shutout.
Yeah, are you not because I think Rashford's next few, or he's obviously got Liverpool away, which he could do something in, but then he's got, I think, Wolves and Burnley back to back at home. Did he change your mind at all the weekends, or?
It didn't change my mind, but it definitely made it a lot harder. I guess looking at alternatives to get Mane, I'm just going to stick to my guns because I feel like if I backtrack now and maybe go Robertson instead, I want to avoid the regret of not getting Mane. Then he goes big in the double game week, and I say I should have stuck to the plan. So the alternatives would be to get rid of De Bruyne or probably Vardy if I want to get Mane, and those two for me are season keepers. So I find it easier to lose Rashford than I do De Bruyne and Vardy. And even though Rashford has been excellent and he was excellent the weekend, it was Norwich. I wish we could play Norwich every week. I don't expect him to get too much against a very good Liverpool defence. I hope he does wipe out that clean sheet for all those who have to see him. But it's a very difficult move. But at the same time, I can always get him back again in a couple of weeks if need be.
Yeah. Cause I think the point you made there, I think Kevin De Bruyne's going nowhere for me, but the Vardy option, I don't think he hasn't looked as good since coming back, I don't think. And I think Rashford's in the form of his life.
Yeah.
And I think you probably want to keep Vardy v Burnley because they look terrible. And even we managed to give them, to beat them fairly comfortably. But I don't know. I think I was really impressed with Rashford the weekend, and I think every time I turn on the radio, they're talking about Rashford. It's just unavoidable the love for Rashford at the moment, and I think I'm starting to get swept into it a little bit.
You've had a up and down season with that guy Rashford. For me,
yeah.
This is the first time I've had him. I've only had him a couple of weeks, so I feel like I might just take those points and run. In terms of short term as well, that Liverpool fixture at the weekend, who would I rather own for that one, Rashford or Mane? Yeah. And I think it's Mane. So that's hard to say as a Manchester United fan, loading up with 3 Liverpool and getting rid of my boy Rashford.
What are your thoughts, Mark, on Mahrez, Aguero, David Silva? Is there a rush to get them in, or can you wait a week or two?
I don't think I'm going to rush, mainly because I've probably got other priorities in terms of getting Mane in. But again, it's probably a bit like United against Norwich. Man City was against Aston Villa. Really good fixtures. Are they going to score 6 goals every week? I don't think so. But they are hard to ignore. I've only got De Bruyne. But it's a tricky one. Pep Guardiola just scares me off Manchester City assets. You could get Mahrez in now after a 17-pointer. Then you get a 1-pointer off him in Game Week 23. So yeah, it's for me. I'm not going to rush out and get them, but they're definitely in my thoughts more than they were, maybe a couple of weeks ago.
I think a few things on Man City. One thing that's probably quite relevant for the games coming up. They play Palace next Saturday, and the game after is the following Tuesday. And whilst I think Mahrez will start against Palace, almost certain. I'd expect, you'd expect Pep to change it up a little bit for the second game. So that's the one thing that puts me up, because I am really tempted to go with Mahrez, but that concerns me a little bit that you could have him for that double game week fixture against Sheffield United, and he just stays on the bench.
I think I'd be more likely to get someone like Mahrez if I had a better bench, because at least then if he does miss out, you get something. But when you've got the likes of Rico and Kelly stinking things up, and Oriol Romeu, it's probably a bit harder to get a rotation-prone player like that. So yeah, it could come back to bite me. Not going for the likes of Aguero and Mahrez. But for me, overall, I'm kind of pretty happy with my squad and how it's going to look after I make those transfers. So hopefully, Man City don't go and score 6 again next week.
Yeah, the thing with Mahrez is that if you look at him over a kind of, a lot of people have been put off by the risk of rotation, but if you look at him over a 2 or 3 game period, if he scores, say, even 10, I know he obviously scored, I think, 17 last week, and then scores a 1 the next week, over 2 game weeks, it's actually not that bad. And maybe there's a chance he doesn't come on, and then you're getting one of your bench players. If you've got a decent bench, I think, potentially he could be a longer term hold than many people are looking at, especially in the form he's in.
I think he's gained the trust of Pep. He started the last 5. I think the only time he came off was against Wolves when they were down to 10 men, and he took De Bruyne off very early in that one as well. So he's got the trust of Pep. And I watched him yesterday. He's incredible. I don't think he's ever been, since he come on the scene at Leicester, he seems to be getting better and better. But he's an absolute top player, and he's the sort of player that makes something happen from nothing. He's as creative, I think, as De Bruyne in terms of how he creates opportunities for himself and others. And he can score. The goals he scored yesterday, very clinical finishes as well. So I think he's an absolute great option. It's just the whole. I think Sadio, probably for yourself, Mark, as well. It's do you want Mane? And if you want Mane, he's not an option, unfortunately, at the moment.
That's the issue. It's probably, for me, when it comes to the likes of Mahrez, it's probably going to be Game Week 25 at the earliest before I can even think about him. Get this double game week out of the way first of all, and then maybe take a closer look at those Man City assets.
Have you thought who you will, because you will have Salah and Mane, who will you, as things stand, appreciate things could change, who will you give the armband to, and will it be a triple captain?
I think that's one of the main reasons why I want to stick to the plan, is because I actually want to triple captain Sadio Mane. I just feel over, the second half of last season and this season, I would have more trust in Mane, giving him that triple captaincy armband than I would Salah. I like the idea of owning both of them. But for me, that's why I want to take this -4 this week and get Mane in, and with a view to giving him the triple captaincy in that game week. I think if the shoe was on the other foot and I already had Mane and I didn't have Salah, then I would probably be more likely to go down the Robertson route. But I've just decided Mane, one of the best players in the game this season, if not the best. And he's the guy I want to trust with my triple captaincy chip this season.
I think our thoughts process is similar there. I have Salah like you. I'm exactly the same in the sense that if I had Mane, I think I would go for Robertson as the third asset. I'm almost certain I would, and spread the funds more.
It comes down to ownership as well. Ownership's not something I usually look at, but I think it's important for a double game week like that when Mane is going to be captained and triple captained, and he's his effective ownership is going to be absolutely huge. And for me, as much as anything, yes, I think he's the best player in the game this season, but it's also for rank protection, because if you don't have him and he goes and scores, let's say 75 points for triple captainers, which is not out of the question, it could absolutely destroy your season if Liverpool, don't keep clean sheets in those games.
What are your thoughts, Mark, on the Watford assets, on players like Sarr and Doucouré? Have you got any plans to bring any of those in the next few weeks?
They're on the watch list. Sarr's been on it for a couple of weeks, and I've added Doucouré to it today as well after his impressive performance at the weekend. They've been excellent. As good of a new manager bounce as we've seen this season. A lot of people talk about Nigel Pearson, but he's got Craig Shakespeare beside him as well. Who was with Ranieri when they won the league. So it's a great team they have there, and it's shown on the pitch. Just simplified things. Getting players playing the right position, and just probably a rocket up them as well is probably what they needed more than anything. But yeah, Doucouré is very interesting playing just behind Deeney. Yeah. He's caught the eye. I haven't watched them for 90 minutes over the last couple of weeks. I've recorded the game from the weekend because I want to have a proper look at them this week. Watch that Bournemouth game, Doucouré in particular. But I think Sarr is probably the most likely for me to come in over the next couple of game weeks. I've never been a big fan of Troy Deeney. I don't know, it's more because of his personality, which is not really it shouldn't be a factor in my FPL decisions. But yeah, I think
he's a Birmingham City fan as well, so I think you're right to not like Troy Deeney.
Yeah, so for me, I think Sarr, and they've got a lot of cheap defenders there as well. A lot of us are probably going to look at shipping the likes of Rico and Kelly, the likes of Cathcart and Mariappa, and these guys are looking good just as bench options. And Foster as well. Anyone who got him in a couple of weeks ago is laughing.
I think the only thing with the Watford assets, so they've got Villa away in 24, they've got Everton then at home in 25. After that, they're away to Brighton, away to Man United. Then they've got Liverpool, Palace and Leicester. So their fixtures, they've got immediate-term fixtures, are not very nice. So I just advise anyone who's looking to invest to maybe just have a look at that before you make any decisions on those. So, okay, so let's take the heat off Mark a little bit and move on to our next manager, which is Andy. Andy, do you want to talk us through your team?
Yeah, so for listeners on the pod rather than YouTube watchers, I've got Pope in goal. Lundstrom still got Wan-Bissaka, although he did get a clean sheet last week, and Trent at the back. And then the midfield five essentially of Traore, Mane, KDB, Grealish. I brought Sarr in last week, and I've still got Aguero actually in my team, and Vardy up front. Bench is looking a little bit weak. Still got Rico in there and Conley, who seems to be very much out of favour recently. And then the kind of, enabler in Montoya at 4.4 million.
So you had a very nice day yesterday, Andy.
What's that?
You had a very nice day yesterday, Captain Aguero.
Yeah, I brought Aguero in a couple of weeks ago thinking, I didn't really want the double up in the Liverpool midfield with Spurs and Man United coming up. So obviously to use those funds elsewhere, Aguero was coming back and quite like the look of City, not just the fixtures that City had, but also the way they were playing. So obviously it's a bit of a risk on the captaincy. It worked. Whether I'll ask you guys what you think. I mean, with Palace up next, obviously after a storming performance, but both him and Jesus played 90 minutes. There is the risk that Pep does what Pep does and plays someone like Sterling up front and rests both Aguero and Jesus. So it's looking a little bit tricky for the captaincy pick in 23. Yeah, my plan for the double game week is to remove Aguero and bring in Calvert-Lewin and upgrade Sarr or Grealish to Salah. Now, as you can see, I've still got Adrian sitting there on the bench. from the legacy when Alisson was out. So I need to be using one of my 3 free transfers over the next couple of weeks. So I'm probably, I was thinking about a cheeky play on Martin, given that Fabianski might be out, but not so keen on the West Ham defence, and it looks like Fabianski might be back in a couple of weeks. So my preferred goalkeeper option might be McCarthy. But really, obviously, Adam's on this pod. So would you be keeping Grealish or Sarr? Because either one of them can go to bring in Salah.
Can you get rid of Traore? Have you got the funds to do that?
No, I need the funds. Unless I go for a really cheap striker, but I think Calvert-Lewin's already a fairly cheap striker.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, Grealish isn't on penalties, so I think that was. I've never seen a player grab the ball so quickly as El Ghazi did yesterday. So it's not a major surprise because Grealish never took that. He's never been a proper penalty taker, if you like. We had loads in the Championship, and he was never around. So I think the way Watford are playing, I would think Sarr's the better option. And the problem with Grealish isn't Grealish, he's a top player, it's the players around him. We're meant to be signing a striker. That hasn't happened yet. So I just think we're that bad at the moment. We played a Burnley side who were terrible and got a good result. But other than that, we've been so poor. And obviously Wesley played against Burnley, and I think him and Grealish linked up really well in that game. So I think Sarr is probably the better option based on how consistent Watford have been at the moment. I'm intrigued. I think looking at you, obviously brilliant. Well done on the Aguero shout. I think that's top work. I think you mentioned about your goalkeepers. I think McCarthy's a fantastic shout, and I think for me, I think he's worth considering as a set and forget as well, because I've been very, very impressed with Southampton recently. And actually defensively, they've improved significantly. They limited Leicester, who are probably one of the best attacking teams in the league, to quite a bit. So I think that would be a very, very good move for you.
The one player I really want, but I can't really fit him in because of this double game week, is Son. I think we saw last season when he can play up front. And I know it's not Pochettino's passing team, it's more Mourinho's kind of more direct style. But with Watford and Norwich up next, maybe it's something we can suggest to Andrew on his wild card. But that's something, if I was looking, I've done I like playing around with the kind of potential wild cards. And we talked last week about looking towards an earlier wild card. Now, I was aiming just kind of after that blank game week in 28. But if you can bring yourself to take Vardy out, you can, with enablers like Ings and Calvert-Lewin, you can bring Son into that midfield. So you could have the Mane Salah double up in midfield and have Son in there alongside KDB for the kind of favourable fixtures into the running.
Have you been tempted at all, Andy, into an earlier wild card?
Not ahead of this double game week, because I've got this kind of plan set up and I've got 2 free transfers. So not ahead of it, but certainly maybe even thinking prior to 28. Obviously, there's a potential blank. One of the things I'm looking at with Vardy, obviously, I don't think you can really say he's out of form just yet. In the very short term, yeah. But when I look at 25, 26, 27, he's got Chelsea, Wolves away, and then City at home. Now, of course,
blank as well with the League Cup. Yeah,
and then the blank in 28. So, I did actually toy with taking Vardy out and keeping Abraham, but it's the ownership that's a little bit concerning. And I take what Mark said with regards to, you don't normally look at it, but in one of these games, if he bangs in, as he can quite easily, 2 or 3 goals, then you are taking a huge, huge hit. And, the Aguero captaincy was good for me, but actually owning Aguero meant that you didn't own Rashford. So over the last 3 game weeks, Rashford scored 9, scored 12 last game week. So, although it did, captaincy was a great haul, essentially, I've actually had to wear a bit of pain by not owning the likes of Rashford. So I think the problem with Aguero as well, I'm even questioning it after he's just scored a hat-trick. Is he captaincy material against Palace? Because I just don't know whether he even starts, or, does he play 60 minutes and then get hauled off? So
I think Aguero 100% starts against Palace. I don't see him not starting after he's got a hat-trick. And I think, in general, when he's been fit and been in a run, he's played. It's been very rare. It's usually coincided with injuries that he's been out of the team. I think he plays. And I actually think Jesus yesterday played on sort of inside left, the Sterling role, if you like, and he looked good there. I thought his movement's good. He can play that role. I think when I saw the lineups, I thought he'd be starting in that position, so there was no major surprise. I think going back to Vardy, you talked about ownership. I don't think it's much of a risk because I don't think people are captaining him. I think if you look at the fixtures you've mentioned and looking at Liverpool's fixtures, people will be all over Salah and Mane, and I think that takes or potentially, De Bruyne is obviously an option any week for captaincy. So I don't think that there's as big a risk with Vardy. I think he'll do well, but I don't see him. So I think the fixtures are fairly tough, and I don't see any hat tricks or huge hauls there personally.
We posted out
other than maybe Burnley.
Aye, and we posted out a tweet earlier around captaincy, and we put the options as Salah or Mane, who got 22% of the vote. De Bruyne got 42% of the vote. You can probably put Aguero in there as well, so a City player. Ings had 11%, and Vardy had 23%, which is probably the lowest captaincy vote he's been. So I do agree there, Adam, that 23%. I think he ended up on 52 last week, so he's maybe not as scary as he was. So
I think the point Mark made earlier on ownership with Mane, I get that. I mean, not having Mane in that double game week, he could have like a record effective ownership, couldn't he? That's quite possible. It could be like 150% plus, probably more than that. So.
And what do you think about the other option I could do? I've not really contemplated it, is Firmino instead of Aguero, and then looking at upgrading. And I know that there's a stat flying around about his performance away from home, and it kind of makes sense, similar to Mane's style of play. I was at the game on Saturday, and when you see them on the counter, it's really just Mane and Salah up there, and Firmino's kind of jogging along behind. But when they're playing away from home, there's obviously less of the counter attack and more of the kind of structure build up, and then Firmino is a bit more advanced. So again, with Mane running into the box late, scoring those goals, being very clinical, I was actually, like you guys, kind of nailed on Mane captain in that double game week. But having watched Salah live, I mean, his movement, he seems like he's back to his best almost. And I know he's not as clinical as Mane. He has got the advantage of penalties there. So I don't know. I'm still 50-50 on it, really.
He had a spring in his step, didn't he, the weekend? You could see. I thought he looked the better of the two the weekend. Yeah,
his stats don't really show it. I was looking at them. I think he only had one shot recorded, but he obviously had the assist, and he could have certainly scored another couple, I think.
It would just be typical FPL if we all race to get Mane and Salah, and then Firmino comes out on top as the double game week hero. I do think he deserves more attention than he's getting from after watching that game at the weekend. I thought he was fantastic in that game. The way he took that goal was top class. But not just that, I think he created 4 chances in the game as well. So there's always that assist potential there for Firmino as well. So I think for people who can't get to the double up if they want to, I think Firmino's a fine pick as well for that double game week. You never know what's going to happen in 1 or 2 games. He should start both as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if he comes out, scoring close to those 2 guys over the course of those games, especially given how many goals he scored away from home. Pretty sure every goal he scored in the league has been away from home this season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the big problem, and that is almost stopping our decisions, it's fear, and it's that ownership. And I think it was a very, very good point that you made. But it almost means that, if you look at it and think, well, Mane's going to have whatever his effective ownership is, it's just far too risky to go without. But then I suppose where there's risk, there's potential reward, isn't there? And imagine gambling on a Firmino triple captain, what that could do if it does come off to your rank. So,
and it also, if you don't go for the double up, you've got to compare, the players that you can keep then as well. I'm going to sell a Maddison and I'm going to sell a Rashford, who both have good fixtures in Game Week 24. So, if Mane and Salah don't do what we hope they do, it could be those managers who have, those likes of Rashfords and Maddisons and Richarlisons who do just as well, if not better. So it's going to be intriguing to see how that double game week does play out.
Yeah, the other one we should probably be considering here is Trent with the 2 away games. Liverpool, watching them live, the pressing of the ball is absolutely insane. Literally every player on the park is pressing all the way into the opposition half. So my feeling is those there will be 2 clean sheets in 24. I mean, Jimenez isn't exactly smashing it out of the park. West Ham aren't either. So that's almost a guaranteed 2 clean sheets for me. And then you've got obviously the chance that he has an assist, or as we saw the other week, scores a goal as well. So, I think that might be an interesting pick. The one issue I've got is I don't have the triple captain chip. So if everyone's on Manny triple captain, 1 or 2 goals and I'm blown out the water. So it's a bit defensive, I think, for me to be captaining either Manny or Salah.
I think the only thing for me which is making me go for Salah and Mane, as we mentioned last week, the week before, I think it was, is their fixtures from 25 onwards as well. So if you pigeonhole yourself with a third Liverpool player, potentially not Salah, Mane and Trent, they're home to Southampton in 25, then they got Norwich, West Ham, Watford, Bournemouth, Everton and Palace. Now, Salah and Mane in those 6 or 7 games could cause, absolute carnage. A few of them, 4 of the 7 are at home as well. So we just mentioned about, for me, known as great away form. I would much rather have Salah or Mane in those games. So just be wary of that. It's not just about 24. It's about, the next kind of 6 or 7 weeks. So moving on to Adam's team then. Adam, could you run us through your team?
Yeah, so I've got Fabianski in goal. Brilliant, which is an incredible move. For all 15 minutes he played. Standard back three of Soyuncu, Lundstram, TAA. I've then got Traore, Ali, De Bruyne and Salah. And then up front, Rashford, Vardy and Jimenez. And then my bench is Button, Cantwell, Rico and Kelly. So I think I'm going to be a bit bolder this week and I'm definitely going to be taking a hit. I think the players that really spring to mind that I want Danny Ings. I can't watch another game. Southampton on Saturday we were watching the games together, and as soon as Southampton scored that second, we just knew it was Ings. It's just getting boring, and they're actually playing well enough to score every week. It's probably one of the best striking performances in terms of getting chances. I've got to bring him in, and I'd actually consider captaining him the weekend as well. Because I think Miles. I just think he looks like he's going to score in absolutely every game, and if he can do that to Leicester, I don't think Wolves look great. So Ings will be coming in, and he'll be coming in for either Jimenez or Rashford. If I bring him in for probably to backtrack a little bit, the one other change that I'm going to be making, I might even make this tonight, is I'm going to bring McCarthy in for Fabianski. The reason being, I don't actually like any of the goalkeepers this year. I think they're all much of a muchness. And might as well just get the cheapest one. And I actually think Southampton have done okay. And even the Liverpool game, you could easily get save points. But I think his fixtures turn after game week 25 for the better. So,
yeah, they do.
And it just means I've only got 8.3 million spent on goalkeepers. So there's so many heavy hitting players that I'd want. I did consider Henderson, but I quite fancy Baldock or Stevens as a second defender. So, which I might look at to go alongside Lundstram rather than Henderson, because Henderson, whilst he's great, he's not brilliant on saves, and I think the fullbacks have got more chance of getting attacking returns. So that's my thought process there. Obviously Foster's a consideration as well, but I think I missed the boat with a couple of clean sheets there, so I want to try something a bit different. So any thoughts on my goalkeeper to try and get me to change my mind?
I think it's the right one, in all honesty. I was going to ask you around Ali and Traore. What are your plans for those? Do you plan on holding on? Or?
Well, I should have been bold and got rid of Ali last week. And the two that I looked at Maddison, but I didn't want him because I didn't think they looked brilliant against Villa. And I didn't want 3 Leicester with either. So the two I really considered were Richarlison or Mahrez. Either one of them would have been very good options. By all accounts, Richarlison was brilliant the weekend as well from a lot of Leicester fans, some Everton fans. So I think Ali, he looked okay against Liverpool. He had a couple of moments, but I just don't like owning him. So he will be involved. He will be going this week for either Mahrez or Mane. So the two options I have is I either get rid of Rashford or Jimenez for Ings. So Ings is coming in. And then I'll get rid of Ali for either Mahrez. I suppose I could look at Richarlison, but I think probably more likely to go for Mahrez or Mane. I think Mane sets me up for the double game week, and I think it's probably the sensible move. And I think Liverpool are a different beast at home, and I think that United game, they'll be up for it. And I don't fancy much from Rashford from that game. I think the other thing against Rashford, he's looked brilliant, but him getting taken off at 58 minutes, and they're obviously in the FA Cup. They play Wolves on Wednesday night. They've then got Burnley at home. They've then got Wolves in the week. So I think they're playing quite a few matches. So Liverpool at home, then Burnley. So they're playing quite a few matches in short succession. And he got dragged off after 58 minutes. So if they're 2 up against Burnley, having just played Liverpool, he might get taken off. So I think that's a slight concern as well.
I like those 2 moves, or 3 moves rather. The one thing I'd be tempted at, and I know Ali's been on your mind for a couple of weeks, is just to look at essentially moving Rashford to Ings and then upgrading, or rather bringing in McCarthy, who's not injured, but then holding on to Ali for the Watford game, because it is an away game. We know that Mourinho does play counter-attack football. Son and Moura switched kind of on the wing to up front, and I wasn't actually that impressed with Ali. I thought he's kind of slow, took too many extra touches on the ball, but there is the chance that game is high scoring for Mourinho.
I don't know if it will be though, because I think Spurs have looked average going forward, and particularly away from home. They didn't score at Southampton. They weren't brilliant away at Wolves. They weren't brilliant away at Norwich. And I think obviously they haven't got Kane, and I think Ali plays quite well off Kane. And I think the way Watford are defending at the moment, they're not giving much away. And I actually wouldn't be surprised to see Watford beat Spurs, in all honesty.
Do you think that Ali plus 4 points? I mean, do you think Mane outscores Ali plus 4?
I went that way. So on my desk at work, before I left on Friday night, I did all the pros and cons of taking out Ali to Mahrez for a -4. And I thought, do you know what? Ali could probably nick a goal and it just edges it. And I think the big thing is, would Mahrez play? That was the thing that thought, well, it could easily be a 1-pointer. It turned out to be a fantastic decision. So couldn't have got any more catastrophic. Sitting next to my Man City supporting father-in-law 2 minutes before Mahrez scored, and you guys need to watch Mahrez. He's some player. So I'm like, just like, yeah, I think Ali's going this week, I think. And it's just whether, I think the Mane move I do like. And I've always talked about having Mane and Salah. And it's not just for this week. I think they've got, like we've touched upon, they've got quite a few decent home games, and they tend to do quite well. And actually, Mane and Salah tend to score well in alternative weeks. So then you've almost affected. Obviously, if they get a double-digit haul, both of them, fantastic. But you're protected. And I think you can also captain and vice-captain them, because then if one of them's rested, it's unlikely they'll come on based on how Klopp's. So unless they're needed. So I do like the double up, but I must admit, Traore's not worked out for me. He's been, I don't know if he's been disappointing or Wolves have. I think he's actually played okay, but
I think he could have got 2 assists at the weekend.
It's just not translated. I mean, he's a decent footballer and he's matured into one, but he's not the sort of player you can predict points for. And one of the things in FPL is it's always good to be able to predict the trends. Like if a player like Bully, is a flat track bully, it's usually quite a good thing. I can't predict Troy's points. I've got no idea whether he'll do well this week. So a good example of that is Cantwell. You can almost predict. He tends to do okay at home. He's got a very good record of scoring a goal at home. So I'll be starting Cantwell over Traore this week.
Yeah, I think Traore this season, Traore's at that awkward price point where you have to ask yourself, do I trust him to play as my 4th midfielder? Because he's too expensive almost to be on the bench. And that's why I've avoided him, even though I've been really impressed with him this season. I never really trusted him as my 4th midfielder. I'd rather spend an extra probably $1 million in that position. I had Jimenez as well, so I probably didn't fancy the double up, which made it easier to avoid Traore. But yeah, to me, he strikes me as a player. He'll get you 5 or 6 weeks of 2 points, and then he'll get another one of those 16 pointers. But for me, it's I think it's his price that puts me off him, because he's too expensive for the bench, and he's almost too cheap to trust as a fourth midfielder.
I'd agree.
You're going to be rolling into these fixtures. I mean, if you look at Wolves' fixtures after 23, they've got Liverpool, Man United, and Leicester in 24, 25, 26. Are you going to be running with the double up then?
No. So what my plan is, so next week, so let's assume I go with the Mane option. I'll then next week bring Calvert-Lewin in for Jimenez, and I may even take a hit to take Traore out and bring in either Grealish, Sarr, or somebody else that I actually want to play who's a bit more. I need to. That's probably one that I need to look at. But I think I'll almost certainly get rid of. The problem is I need to get rid of Jimenez to upgrade Traore, if that makes sense. So, I'm not a fan of their fixtures, and I don't want to own Traore for much longer. I mean, the other. I suppose the other option to look at would be to possibly go with someone like Fleck at Sheffield United, but I suppose I think they play Man City in the in game week 24.
Doing 24, so, yeah.
Yeah, so he's looked quite good, and I think we looked at it the weekend, and when his home points have been brilliant, and they've got 3 or 4 really plumb home fixtures. So I think he could actually be. And he played. I don't know if you watched the West Ham game, but he looked really good, I thought. It passed the eye test for me in terms of being probably their most involved attacking player. So yeah, I think I'll probably go the Mane route, because if I don't do that and it goes and Mane ends up hauling, I've just got to write off my season then. And I think it's a bit too early. I think I'm at about 250k at the moment, and I think with calculated risks I can get it back. But if I do something like that and it doesn't come off, it'll be catastrophic. And I think, I'm not quite ready for that yet.
Okay, so talking about Fleck and Mane, let's take a look at my new wildcard team. So I didn't have a bad week. I scored 66 points, and my plan was to bring in Salah and Mane for 24, but saw Mane rose last night, and I was also after Ings as well. So I just thought, home against United in 23, let's just get it done. So for those listening on the audio, my new wildcard team going into game week 23 as it stands is McCarthy and Henderson in goals. Dunk, Soyuncu, Alexander-Arnold, Lundstram, and Brandon Williams. Salah, Mane, De Bruyne, and then the 4.9 twins of Cantwell and Fleck in midfield. And then Calvert-Lewin, Vardy, and Ings. So just for some context here, I'm around 880k, struggling a bit. So I got talked into Salah and Mane last week. And even though I've been thinking about it this week, obviously making that team, and I've got 2 4.9s in midfield, I have been thinking about changing it round. I do think I'm going to stick with Salah and Mane. My big decision is whether to go with Vardy or whether to downgrade Vardy to a cheaper striker and then potentially upgrade Cantwell or Fleck. But the fixtures I do like. So if we just have a quick look at the fixtures for the key players I brought in. So the fixtures for the Southampton defenders. So after Liverpool in 25, they've got Burnley, Villa, West Ham, Newcastle, Norwich, and Arsenal. Sheffield United after Man City this weekend, they've got Palace, Bournemouth, Brighton, Villa, Norwich, Newcastle. So they're really nice. And for bringing in Dunk, so for Brighton, their fixtures starting this week actually. So they've got Villa this week, and they've got Bournemouth, West Ham, Watford, Sheffield United, Palace, and Wolves. So I've gone kind of strong at the back, but in a cheap way for the next 6 or 7 weeks to allow Salah and Mane. Mark, can I ask your initial thoughts first?
Yeah, so the first thing that really strikes me there is the 2 4.9 million midfielders, Cantwell and Fleck. For me, that would probably just leave things a little bit inflexible going forward. So you're with the 3 big hitting midfielders and then the 2 cheap guys, you're cutting out the price brackets in the middle. You know, the likes of your Richarlisons, your Sons, and Madisons and all these guys. But I mean that doesn't mean you're going to be in that structure for forever. You can always lose one of Mane and Salah or De Bruyne. But again, it's probably unlikely that you're going to want to do that. So I think in your case, I would actually be quite tempted if you want to stick with Salah, Mane, Trent, De Bruyne. I would actually consider losing Vardy out of that one. I think just to just for a more rounded squad. Downgrading Vardy to a 6-7 million striker, and then just going with one of Cantwell or Fleck, who I think are both equally really good options, are by far and away the two best players in that price bracket. Like Adam said, Fleck was excellent against West Ham. Could have had a goal as well in that game. He probably should have. So for me, I think I would be quite tempted to consider losing Vardy, given that you've got ground to make up. And if you want to stick with the Salamani, De Bruyne midfield, I would probably rather a more balanced midfield without Vardy.
Yeah, when I look at that team, that's exactly what the wildcard team that I built for myself would have done exactly that. So you have essentially that strike force, and then you've got Vardy downgraded to, I had Greenwood in mind, but it could be, maybe Martinelli coming in. I think he's going to play when Aubameyang's out. And then you're looking at either Fleck or Cantwell upgraded to, I think if you do this kind of switch, you've got a nice run. So if you pick, I know people are not very in favour of Spurs right now, but you've got Son would have Watford, Norwich, and then in 25, when they face Man City, you could switch into Richarlison, who has Watford and then Palace up. So that's the one change I would make, would be, you've obviously got to be careful or hide behind the couch when Vardy's playing. I think it's Burnley this week, isn't it? But yeah, particularly as you said, you're looking at chasing rank as well. I think either one of Cantwell or Fleck up to Son, and then when Son's fixtures turn, then you look at someone like Richarlison.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew there. I think, if I was looking up to make up a lot of ground like you are, Andrew, that Son would be right up there as one of the top players. If there's a player that can, chase rank for you at low ownership, there's probably no one better. Even though Spurs have been pretty poor this season, watching that game at the weekend, Son probably should have had at least one goal. He's still getting the chances, and he's the ideal fantasy player, as we know. He's greedy. He once he sees goal, he's going to have a pop. So I think Son is definitely one to consider for those wildcarding this week.
I think me, I would look at. I would probably not have Salah and go with Robertson, because we talked about it when we wildcarded and looked at the overall team value. But I think if you're wildcarding, having a good spread of attackers, and so you can upgrade the likes of Cantwell and mix it around. I think it'll be better for your overall team. You can only captain one out of Mane and Salah. I mean, you might prefer the other one, but that's what I would probably do. I agree with Mark's point on having Cantwell and Fleck. I'd lose Cantwell because I think there's a risk to his place. Norwich have signed someone today, but also looking at the fixtures, other than Bournemouth this week, I don't think they've got loads of nice home games, not in the imminent future anyway. I think they might be towards the back end. So I think you could put him down to a 4.3, 4.4 playing midfielder. I think Dunk at what's he, 4.8? It's just if you're going to play, how often will you play him? If you're going to go with the 4, fine. If not, I think if you're going to consistently have a 3, then I would look at somebody cheaper. Because I owned Dunk at the start of the season, and one of the frustrations with it is just that little bit too expensive for the bench. And also with Dunk, he's capable of scoring, and then he's one of these players that under Potter, he gets a lot of goal scoring opportunities. I mean, the weekend he had a couple of chances as well. He's always getting. So he's the sort of player I think you could get away with playing every week because he's got a goal threat in him and he's got something about him. But I think he's possibly a little bit too expensive for the bench. Yeah,
you could just flip him for Webster. That would probably save you 0.4. And then, Webster's probably a player you're more comfortable benching from time to time, as opposed to having a bench Dunk. But
he's got 3 goals, hasn't he, Webster, this season? So he might actually be
as well.
He might be I'd probably say that is a better option. But I mean, you set up fairly nice. I love the Brandon Williams pick. I think probably Mark does as a United fan as well. I don't know how he missed that one the weekend. That was pretty bad. Even my daughter, who's 5, was a bit shocked with that. She's like, how can they miss that, Daddy? I'm like, so that was quite a tough one to explain. But I think overall it looks well balanced. And I think you've still got your bench boost, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, and this is why I wanted a reasonably rounded team, with a second keeper and everyone playing, because I think it's I think it's fine first half of the season to maybe have a very weak bench and an on-playing keeper, but I'll probably I'll look at the bench boost a bit later. But I'm not scared of using it early if the opportunity arises as well. If they're all fit, they're all playing, they've all got nice fixtures. I'm not scared of playing it either.
Have you got your triple captaincy?
I haven't. I used that in Gameweek 1, the same as Andy on Salah. So we've gained our 12 on that already, Andy, even though it should have been more. But so thanks for the feedback, guys. I think I am going to stick with Salah and Mane. So like I say, it's not just a double, it's the kind of month after. The Salah and Mane dual ownership is quite low as well. So if I went for Mane or Salah, and both of them bang, I wouldn't really make up rank, whereas I'm kind of trusting that pre-game week 33, which is when they should have, have the league wrapped up there or thereabouts. I think they're going to go 100% full throttle. I think they're going to go for the league, and that's why I'm going for Salah and Mane as a differential. I will take a look definitely at Cantwell and Vardy, so I do like that idea of potentially bringing in Son. The only reason I want Cantwell is this week home to Bournemouth. I think, I'm very jealous of everyone who's just had him kind of sitting rotten on their bench, because I think this week he could get a haul. I think he could get a goal or a goal and assist, so I think he'd be a really good one. But obviously I can't just look at 1 week, so I'll definitely take a look at the Vardy.
I think with Cantwell, he gets a chance every game. It's just whether he scores it. I think he had a good... he always seems to get one shot on target every single game, and it's just a lottery as to whether he scores it. But
he's going to get chances against Bournemouth, isn't he? So,
well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? Yeah, you'd hope so.
And the only other thing I'd look at is if you do look at downgrading, or not, just switching Dunk to Webster, then you could bring in Evans instead of Soyuncu. Probably more of a goal threat at set pieces.
How much is Evans?
5.3
now.
I'll take a look at that. Thank you very much.
You bought Soyuncu. Oh yeah, you got 4.8. Okay, so
yeah, I got value in him. So okay, so let's move on to the quickfire questions. We have around 8 questions from the community, so just quick answers, please, guys. If we can answer, since Mark's our guest, if you can answer first, Mark, and then Andy or Adam, if you have any thoughts, please chip in. So question from @Swaggart85513625. Best 3 form forwards, Mark, moment?
Quick fire: Danny Ings, Marcus Rashford, and I'll probably say third one's tricky, actually. I still think Abraham's a good option.
Okay. And best goalkeeper and defender. So which team for clean sheets at the moment?
It's got to be Liverpool, I think, still.
Okay. FPL Clown @Ryan I9969. I know Aguero just got a hattie, but should owners keep him, and should non-owners consider him, given he has virtually no guarantee in player time? Same applies to Mahrez. Yes or no?
Well, I'd keep him. I'd keep him for this week against Palace, but I think at his price and the lack of guarantee of starts or minutes, I think the funds, especially with this double game week, you can use the funds elsewhere with Liverpool assets.
We've got a lovely one for Adam here.
I knew this was deliberate. I knew this was deliberate.
From Perry at Kermit. Should our transfer every week be an attacker playing Villa?
No. I don't. The reason I don't think it is that I think Villa's fixtures coming up are actually, they're playing a lot of the teams around them. So they've got Brighton, Bournemouth, and I think Watford possibly, I suppose. But I think at the time Watford come in, they've got their fixtures start to toughen. So I'm going to say no. I think yesterday was a one-off. That said, I'm not a fan of Smith. I think he's tactically inept at this level. So,
okay. So @MarkHutch79, this is for you, Mark. So out of option A, do you prefer DCL and Cantwell or Grealish and Greenwood?
Yeah, I think that's an easy one. You go for the 2 players who start every week. So I would go for DCL and Cantwell for that one.
And then last option, Soyuncu or Bulldog?
I think from now until the end of the season, if I had to pick out of those 2 who will score the most points, I would back Baldock. I rate Sheffield United very highly in terms of the defence, and he's got those attacking returns as well, playing wing back.
Okay, Andy, question from Charlie Braun 14: who is the best replacement for Rico?
Well, I think at that price point, you're probably looking at the Man United player that you are about to bring in your wildcard, Williams. Attacking, potentially not nailed on, if Shaw comes back, but at that price, you can probably sit on your bench until you need a bench boost. And Man United have kept 2 clean sheets in a row, which is quite unusual for them this season. They've got some fairly favourable fixtures. So yeah, I'd switch to Williams.
Okay. At Sky Player in FPL asks, Adam, for those with the injured Fabianski, and again, another topical one for you, Adam, sorry, who are planning on Liverpool defensive double up for 24, could Alisson be the solution? Yes or no?
He could, but I wouldn't go there. I think if you're going to look for a cheap Liverpool defender, look at Gomez, and then I think then invest the money further forward. Personally, I just think there's a bit of a ceiling with Alisson, which is realistically going to be 6-7 points. I think the others have got more value.
Okay, Mark at FPL Heath asks, is it smart or stupid to replace KDB with Mane or Salah?
I don't want to say it's stupid because Liverpool have the double game week coming up, but I would say find another way to get them rather than having to sell KDB.
Yeah, okay. And finally, one for Andy. This is off Nikhil Narayanan. Is Firmino an interesting double game week option all away?
Yes, I'd say if you're looking for a differential, because most people will be on the Mane, Salah or the defensive double up. So it could reap rewards.
So with all the talks of blanks and double game weeks, Fantasy Football Hub have got you completely covered. We have the ultimate guide for members on how to navigate the blanks and double game weeks, written by 6-time top 1K finisher Abdul Rahman, aka FPL Salah on Twitter. We also have Ben Krellin's planning spreadsheet and FPL Jossie's fixture planner, all amazing tools that all Hub contributors use to navigate through the double game weeks and maximize chip use. That's it from us this week. We hope getting in the head of these top FPL managers that we've had on, including Mark. Mark, thank you very much for coming on, obviously, has helped you with your own teams and thoughts for the coming game week. So thank you, Mark, so much for coming on. Where can we find you?
Yeah, you'll find me, best place to get me is on Twitter at FPL General, and keep an eye out for the 59th minute podcast every Tuesday. Okay,
and Adam, where can we find you?
On Twitter, ahopcroft13.
And Andy?
On Twitter at FPL Fantasy Guide.
Okay, and my Twitter handle is at Fergie222. So this video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available in all major podcast libraries, including iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you like what you hear and see, please like, share, subscribe, retweet. It all helps us get the word out and make sure you don't miss anything. All comments and feedback are very welcome. Our Twitter handle is at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_podcast. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta-Stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. Finally, we have some big news for this coming Saturday. So we at Fantasy Football Hub will be launching FPL Saturday Live, where we'll be talking you through all the 3 p.m. Premier League games from an FPL perspective via YouTube video and audio live stream with myself, Adam, and Rich Clark. So we'll be signing in at about 10 to 3 to run through the lineups, then celebrate or curse every goal, assist and clean sheet live as it happens. You won't want to miss it. Check out our Twitter feed and the Hub website this week for more details. We will be back next week. We'll be looking forward to double game week 24 with none other than Fantasy Football Hub contributor and master podcaster Josh from Always Cheating. In the meantime, we hope you have a good week, but more importantly, a great game week 23. And we bid you thank you and good night. Good night.